This Bucks Rocket game was the epitome of find a way to win, and the Bucks found a way to walk out of Fiserv Forum with the dub after a 101-100 victory over the Rockets. We'll discuss how the Bucks got to that dub on the other side of the intro.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What it do? Welcome to Locked On Bucks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Camille Davis. Joining me is Frank Madden, the founder of brewhoop.com and the longtime voice of the pod. We appreciate you tuning in, and we thank you for making Locked On Bucks your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. And you can find us in newsletter form as well, introducing that Locked On Bucks daily newsletter. Head over to lockedondaily.com to sign up for the one-stop ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Today's episode is also sponsored by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to receive or win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. Frank, the Bucks were trying to run this game straight away from the victory column, but they found a way to win in this one. They got off to a really slow start to begin the game, turned a 13-point deficit in the first into a 12-point halftime lead. Third quarter, I was worried about the Bucks. Third quarters have not been good to them as of late. They started all right. Then the Rockets kept chipping away. Fred VanVleet was the man for the Rockets in that third quarter. Enter the fourth, only down by 3. Then the Rockets come into that fourth quarter with an 11-2 run, take the lead, but then the Bucks close the quarter on a 16-9 run for the win. Frank, how were your nerves watching the Bucks down the stretch in this game? We were talking a little bit beforehand about some similarities to how the Packers escaped from the Bears this weekend as well.
Yeah, I think the main thing probably to start with is the Rockets are, by all accounts, a good basketball team, right? They came into this game having won 5 straight. And I think we saw the athleticism and versatility that they can bring, no matter who's in the game, was really impressive, right? They've got a really interesting mix of, the kind of veteran guys. VanVleet, as you mentioned, was giving us flashbacks to 2019 Eastern Conference Finals there in the third quarter. Bucks just could not contain him as they made that run. And the athleticism of guys like Tari Eason and Amen Thompson at times, especially in the open court, was just really hard to manage. If Brook or Giannis wasn't back, it just felt like it was becoming a layup line in transition. So I think, given the nature of the opponent you were playing against, you had a little bit of luck in the sense that the Rockets didn't shoot well from 3. But man, like the offensive rebounding that you saw, that's where I think you really felt the athleticism advantage that they had. They went out and they looked like a team that thought, hey, the Bucks are not going to go out and get the ball. Like if we're aggressive, crashing the pass, we're going to be able to get second chances. That was a really key part of keeping them in the game after the Bucks did a great job coming back and hit a bunch of threes. Gary Trent, among others, Brook Lopez. We're going to talk a lot about Brook on this podcast. Help the Bucks kind of pull away to get a nice double-digit lead in the second quarter, and as you said, maintain that. But yeah, coming down the stretch, I mean, it felt kind of like, man, this game is slipping away, right? I mean, if you watch this team all year, it just felt like the offense, another bad offensive night. Look at the numbers. We've talked about how the offense has been bad in spite of Giannis and Dame being really good, Giannis being great for most of the year. Tonight they were not. They were not great, and so it made a little more sense that you struggled offensively because Giannis had a slow start, 8 turnovers. Just felt like he was kind of sloppy with it. Kind of offensive fouls in the second half, including some late, at least one late one. And Dame, again, just could not get that 3 ball going. He's 1 for 18 from 3 over the last 3 games. The one he made was that random late clock hot potato 3 against Boston. And, he missed a couple in the fourth quarter, and you just thought, man, it's just not going to happen. But Dame stayed aggressive offensively, and Giannis made a huge play defensively late, which, he another 3 blocks tonight. He has been just a massive defensive game changer. Over the past couple weeks, he's averaging 2.7 blocks over the last 6 games. And Brook Lopez, Brook has just been the anchor. 40 minutes tonight. They needed him in for every one of those minutes. And he gave them a chance early. He dragged them to, within striking distance in the first quarter. And Dame did enough off the dribble throughout the game, really, to at least, kind of keep scoring enough. And, big credit to him with the ball, on that final Bucks possession. I think it was against Dylan Brooks, if I remember correctly.
It was. Yep.
Not an easy matchup, but he was patient. He probed, and ultimately he got to the rim and was able to finish in a way that you don't necessarily associate with, how Dame's going to be getting buckets in the year 2024. But that was really the only way he was scoring tonight, was getting to the rim, and he did that repeatedly. They picked on Şengün a fair bit, but to go at, Dylan Brooks in that situation obviously is not easy. So, huge play by Giannis containing Van Vliet and recovering to block Şengün. Terrific play. Foot might have been out of bounds as they were going up the floor, but we'll take it.
They always won, Frank.
Yeah. And, as we saw on Saturday, like the margins between wins and losses, we saw it against the Detroit game as well. These last 3 games, like, all 3 of those games could have swung either way very easily. I don't know if you're happy winning 2 of 3, but certainly after Saturday and kind of the letdown, feeling like you got cheated out of a win potentially due to the refs in Charlotte, to bounce back and really not play well offensively at all, but to do enough defensively, especially in the half court, defensive rebounding not included. But other than that, like, a lot of really strong efforts defensively from a lot of guys, led by Brook and Giannis, and got you a really important win. I mean, if you lose this game, you lose 2 straight, you're 4-10, it just feels like, man, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Instead, now you hopefully, knock out probably the hardest game you're going to have here for a little bit, and to claim that win is a big step in the right direction. And hopefully, you're going to get better play from Giannis and Dame moving forward. But to win a game like this on the back of your defense, we haven't been able to say that about the Milwaukee Bucks a whole lot this year.
You haven't. And the defense is something that really showed up. AJ Green was somebody who also stood out to me defensively in this game. He was consistently getting targeted, which isn't new. We've been seeing teams target AJ Green on defense.
Racially profiling AJ Green, targeting / racially profiling. Hey,
exactly.
We're gonna lure him into thinking they can attack AJ Green, and then they're just not going to be able to.
Yeah, because he's been stout. He was really good in this game, even though on that last play, the busted play where the switch was
it started with him.
Him and Gary Trent Jr. were just like, they didn't know who, and they both peeled off on Brooks, leaving Green open. Then Giannis recovered to that, and then Şengün was open. Ajax saw that late, but luckily that Fred VanVleet pass kind of just sailed over him. He couldn't really handle it. Then they have enough time to get a shot up, so the Bucks get that dub. But to your point about the offensive struggles there, Brook Lopez was the guy who really kept them connected. Even in the fourth quarter, as the Rockets are making that run and the Bucks trying to get back into in the fourth, Brook had 7 straight points. Like, he opened the scoring up for the Bucks in the fourth quarter, kept them connected, also just had some monster plays on defense. He was the MVP of this game, hands down, in my opinion. And he is someone who had a performance that deserves a lot more conversation around. So when we come back on the other side, want to dive into Brook Lopez's amazing play in this game on offense and defense for this Bucks team. Prize Picks is one of my favorite places to get my daily sports fantasy on, because you can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Pick with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get in on the action in sports in over 30 states, including Cali, Florida, Georgia, Texas, and of course, Wisconsin. Sign up today. You'll get $50 instantly when you play $5. That ain't got to be a win to get that 50. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this NBA season. Like, which players are going to go off? Who ain't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. Prize Picks puts its member first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. And y'all should know, all the everydayers should know by this point. I want my money when I win. And that's what I love about Prize Picks, so you can get it so quickly. Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. I repeat, download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Brook Lopez, the man in the middle, MVP of the game, in my opinion. 27 points, 10 rebounds, 4 blocks, 3 steals. He was 5 of 8 from 3. Without Brook and Gary Trent Jr. for that aspect of it, the Bucks would have been dead from 3-point range in this game. But Brook just came out with such a great defensive effort. He had that one block that I got scared. I think it was like in the second quarter. It was the Amen Thompson dunk attempt. He came down really hard on his left side, asked to come out the game immediately, went back into the locker room, and I was like, oh my gosh, like if something's wrong with Brook the day that we get Dame back, like this season is just off the rails. But Brook came back in, and as we've mentioned, he played a big part for the Bucks down the stretch for them to get this victory.
Yeah, I mean, I think I remember Lisa called out after Brook, I think, hit a three, which was desperately needed. It just felt like they were in quicksand in the fourth quarter there. The Rockets going on runs, hitting some threes. Rockets missed a lot of threes in those middle quarters in particular. And then Van Vliet got going, and the fourth quarter, it just felt like they were letting go of the rope just to start the period, just the momentum entirely on the Rocket side. And Brook hit that 1-3, and I think at least at that point said they were about 1 for 8 from 3. And again, I mean, if you're going to complain about Brook, focus on, I think for this year, focus on the offense, right? The offense has not been good enough, but 2 of the last 3 games, he's been awesome offensively. And not just shooting threes, but obviously tonight he did it kind of every which way. And it felt like when nothing was going offensively, Brook was popping up with a 3. He was rolling to the foul line, hitting a little like those little one-handed push shot. When he got to the rim, he had a left-handed dunk, like a down the lane left-handed dunk. I don't know if I've ever seen Brook dunk with his left hand. It's like weird. Like Giannis dunks with his left hand all the time. Brook doesn't really dunk with his left hand. And he had that other big play early in the fourth. I think you referenced, Giannis kind of threw it out to him coming along the baseline. He basically, his body was behind the backboard, and he reached back and threw an and one to kind of throw up a really difficult shot off the glass. So yeah, just defensively, he was huge. Every other starter was a negative in this game, including Giannis. Giannis was -2, Brook +14. And again, you can look at obviously the offense, especially early in the year, just felt like he's had too many like 2 for 7 from the field, 0 for 4 from 3 type nights offensively. I think the defense has been consistently really good. There have been a couple notable games like the Knicks game where, just the matchup was bad, and, he was put in spots, and, he just couldn't perform at the level needed. Right. And some of that, again, is just matchup stuff. But yeah, I mean, he's just been massive for them defensively. I think the Rockets had like a 76 points per play in half court tonight. And really it was the offensive rebounding was the only thing that kind of saved them in the half court. So, I mean, again, here we are, right? Everybody's always, a lot of people trying to kind of push Brook Lopez out the door. And you just look at some of these wins, whether it was the Detroit win, whether it was this win, and just think about like how essential he was because of what he did on both ends. I think I saw a StatMuse thing that, like 27 points, 10 rebounds, 3 steals, 4 blocks. Like no center at his age has ever done that in the history of the NBA. You could bet you could put that same stat, same sort of thing together for what he did on last week against the Pistons as well. So yeah, just big hats off to Brook. And I shared your anxiety when I when
Like,
he
I was
came
like,
out. I mean,
"Please don't."
he got up quickly, but you could tell something was wrong, and he was obviously walking under his own power. But he's such a warrior, right? I mean,
Mhm.
really, he's an Iron Man. Then he has the major back injury, and then he basically has been an Iron Man ever since. So this is why I don't really know what this defense is without Brook Lopez, and so yeah, he was just huge today. And until further notice, I mean, they're going to need him to continue to
Mhm.
do stuff like this. Not every night, but they're going to need I would say that you don't necessarily need this version of Brook every night, but can we get like the 13 to 15 point per game guy that we've had over the last couple of years, who's efficient, maybe not dominant offensively, but then just doing what we know he's capable of doing defensively as well. That's what we have to kind of cross our fingers for. So yeah, first star of the game, Brook Lopez for sure.
Absolutely. His first double-digit rebounding game of the season for the Bucks as well with those 10 boards. And it was the steals for me that also stood out because the blocks and things like that, the rim protection from Brook, you expect, but seeing how active he was with his hands as well, just poking the ball away from Sagoon. Like he had one steal where he poked it away. He's diving on the floor. Like the oldest player on the Bucks diving on the floor, all 7 feet of Brook Lopez trying to get that ball, trying to get that energy going. Because to your point earlier in the show, like this is a really good Rockets team. This is a Rockets team that I was actually pretty nervous about playing coming into this game, even if it was the second night of a back-to-back for the Rockets, just because of the areas where they excel can be areas where the Bucks struggle against, like that offensive rebounding. They were like the second best offensive rebounding rate team in the league coming into this game. It's something that they do very well. A top 11 offense, top 5 defense. It's a team that's just stacked. So for Brook Lopez to come and find a way to make an impact on the game defensively, ending possessions by grabbing the boards, it was just really, really big for this team, especially on a night where you don't get that usual scoring output from Dame, from Giannis. Although, as we've already mentioned, they both made some key plays down the stretch. It was interesting to me, though, seeing that Andre Jackson Jr. started the game, played about 4 or 5 minutes in the first quarter. And then we did not see Andre again until the very last play of the game where Doc subbed him in for Dame to get some more defense on the floor to try to protect that Bucks lead. The rotation was really interesting to me in this game. No Pat Connaughton, which Doc said, like, that wasn't part of the plan going into it. We just had some guys who were playing really well, so we wanted to continue to rock with them. But that rotation is getting more and more interesting
That's
as
weird,
guys.
right? I mean, that's weird, right? I mean, Pat's like
Yes,
a guy that normally
yes.
plays in the first quarter, so it's like, oh, what?
Like, wouldn't you know?
Like AJ Green wasn't having a heater tonight. Andre like literally played 5 minutes and then disappeared for the entire game. So that just feels very strange. Like I don't accept that excuse. I'm fine with it because at least we don't have to hear people complaining about Andre not playing because of Pat Connaughton. Like I don't know who people would say like shouldn't have played tonight because you played a bunch of guys that I think most people think should play. Torian
Mhm.
was really the one guy that like probably jumps out that probably should have played less based on just his offensive struggles. He had basically kind of a major comeback down to earth after
Yeah, he
Saturday's
did.
out of body experience offensively. But yeah, yeah, I mean, okay, like this is the kind of stuff that I think it's good to sort of try different things with, right? Like, I mean,
Mhm.
probably people would say like, oh, okay, don't play Bobby as much. But yeah, I mean, it was very interesting to see Andre play very little and Pat to not play at all.
It really was. So I want to talk a bit more about that, as well as Gary Trent Jr., who seems like he's continuing to pick up some momentum for him in this season, which is really, really good to see after the start to the season that he's had. So diving a bit more into the Bucks rotation again, especially as they're getting healthy, some interesting questions are starting to form. So talk a bit more about that when we come back. Make sure that you are ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and they can get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, You can check out the latest stats. You can view the live play-by-play and so much more, all on the very same page where you're placing your bets. So visit fanduel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's fanduel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Frank, this Bucks rotation, a 9-man rotation for the Bucks this evening, as we mentioned, no Pat Connaughton. And I'm looking at it because we've heard Doc talk about some of the rotation moves. He said, like, hey, Rollins has jumped right in the rotation. He's going to get those minutes. Rollins has been hurt. Now you're seeing Wright play pretty well. He had a couple of plays where he's initiating the offense again, where it was just like this, it's not going to end well, and it didn't end well for the Bucks. But 2 of 4 from 3 tonight. You had Gary Trent Jr. playing some pretty solid defense, 4 or 6 from 3 tonight, 4-8 from the field in general. You had AJ Green, as we've mentioned, some really good defense from him this evening. Only went 1 of 5 from 3, and that 1 3 that he hit was the one down the stretch where the Bucks desperately needed it. I love to see guys continue to shoot, even when it hasn't been falling, as long as they're good looks. Like, don't get scared to shoot. Stay aggressive. Trust your work. If it's a good shot, hey, leave it up to fate after that, but just keep making sure you're taking good shots. And AJ Green did that on that very last one. But again, no Pat Connaughton. And when Rollins comes back, that's more minutes in that guard rotation that theoretically should get shuffled. So when you're thinking about the Bucks rotation, Frank, like, who are some guys that you want to see continue to get those minutes? And who are some guys you're kind of like, if they have to lose minutes going forward, I'm cool with that.
I mean, I think AJ struggling with his shot most of this game, right? I think he hit that big 3, and it was not like some wide open, easy 3. I mean, it was a long, I think it may have been off a pump fake and a sidestep or something, but they were down 194. Dame draws a foul, I think draws it to 196. And there were some possessions there late with the Bucks where I think we're down 4. Maybe it was when there was 98, 94 or something, but the Bucks had some good defensive possessions that they did not pay off with good offensive possessions. And so for them, for AJ to hit that shot down 196, again, it was only a 4-point deficit, but it just felt like the way the Bucks were playing, the way, Dame, you felt like if he shoots a 3, he's missing, right? He had another air ball tonight. And Giannis was obviously, just never really got on track. He had a bit of a run in the second quarter, a little bit of run in the third quarter, but just felt like the turnovers and had another offensive foul late. It just never felt like he was reliably able to take advantage of oftentimes size mismatches that he had, especially in the post. So for AJ to hit that shot, I thought was huge, and for Doc to stick with him when he's not shooting the lights out or not really shooting at all. Did hit another 2-point jumper tonight. So really diversifying his game. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I think, just kind of his combination of he's just strong enough and he reads the game pretty well and he moves his feet. And, I think when I think about the Bucks defense this year, last year, I think so much of the challenges really last year, I think it was kind of stood out even more. This year, we've seen enough of guys like AJ and Andre and Gary Trent, so it hasn't been as bad. But just the inability to contain at the point of attack was such a problem last year. And AJ, I think, deserves so much credit because he's been genuinely good there. And tonight, he always gets 1 to 2 calls where it's like, is he really doing anything wrong there? But a guy drives and leans on him and he gets, the kind of young player whistle against him. So I thought it was great that Doc went back to him late in the game. He brought back Gary and AJ late to get them back on the floor. And I think, I think if you talk about guys that I want to see, I think AJ's defense and his shooting that's portable, right? Again, maybe there's some situations where it may be harder to play him, maybe size mismatches, whatever. Okay. But for the most part, I think the floor stretching ability he provides is something that night in and night out you need. And contrast that with Ajax, who I want to see Ajax on the floor every game,
Me too.
but I think there are going to be games, and I haven't gone back to look at the first quarter, but obviously they could not get anything going offensively in those first few
Mhm.
minutes when Ajax was on the floor. Now, is that Ajax's fault? Not like he's the guy with the ball and he's screwing everything
Right.
up, but against a team like the Rockets, we saw it also against the Celtics where he got benched for most of the second half. I do think really good defenses who, figure out like, okay, we're just gonna kind of ignore him and not really play him. I think that can be exploited to an extent.
Mhm.
So again, I'd have to go back and look to see exactly what the Rockets were doing, how much of it was them just, playing him in a way that just made it too hard on everybody else. Um, so yeah, a bit surprised, especially to not go back to him like at the start of the third quarter was a little bit interesting, because they had a big lead. Granted, he hadn't been part of creating the big lead, but
Yeah.
I would have been nice to just go back to him just to see like, okay, can you kind of get him back into it, especially because of obviously the physical toolkit that a lot of those Rockets players have, whether it's Jalen Green or Van Vliet. Van Vliet more so obviously skill and guile than physical toolkit. But yeah, I think I do want to see Ajax play every night,
Mhm.
but I do think, and again, maybe people might not want to admit it as much, but I think his minutes are much more conditional, I think, based on his offense and sort of how he fits in. And credit to him on Saturday. He was
Yeah.
great offensively, had the best offensive game of his life, hit threes, etc. But, until he's more consistently aggressive inside the arc and outside the arc, I think it's a bit more tenuous with him. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think that the interesting question obviously would just be how much do you really need to give Bobby 20 to 25 minutes every night? He was okay tonight. He wasn't bad, but they were clearly negative when he was on the floor.
Mhm.
But I thought it was interesting when he didn't play last week, right? I don't know that you missed him as much as you maybe would think based on the fact that he's a guaranteed rotation guy every night. Um,
And
so I
one of
don't
the
know.
few
We'll see.
shot creators on the Bucks.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's an interesting question, right? Because I think when he's and we saw it at times tonight too. I mean, when he is attacking and getting to his righty little hook shot, um, I think it's generally a good thing. But you also kind of wonder how much does he become just a crutch? Because I mean, the reality is, I mean, he's
Yeah,
not been
true.
an efficient scorer this year, right? And a lot of that's more because his 3-point shot hasn't been there. But I just wonder, and it's one thing if like Dame or Giannis is like trying to go one-on-one or one-on-two. Those guys are a little bit different talent level than Bobby. But to go into this, instinctively just be like, oh well, Bobby post up and settle
Yeah.
for a turnaround jumper. I just feel like is that really encouraging better offensive basketball, or is that letting them fall into bad habits, lazy habits, stagnation offensively? That even if he, makes some shots, like, what are we really doing, and
Mhm.
what are you trying to do from a conceptual standpoint offensively? So again, I don't think he's as easy as some people might say to replace. I think some people make it seem like you're not going to miss anything if you put in whatever, like random wings playing small ball five. I think it'd be easier to do this if Chris Middleton was around as well, just because
Yep.
he has some obvious size, and again, not really true power forward size, but you could play a bit smaller than you might otherwise be able to play. But yeah, whatever. We can worry about that, on another night, because tonight
Tonight,
the,
enjoy the
the the
win.
mixture was just good enough. Was just good enough. Whatever those combination of guys on the floor was.
Yeah, Doc likes that 9-man rotation, and the guys that he went with tonight made an impact. Again, I mentioned DeLon Wright offensively, but also just seeing him get going defensively, just how active his hands are with the deflections and causing havoc in that way too. It's been real fun to watch. But again, the Bucks found a way to win against a really good Houston Rockets team. They are now 5-9, and they set their sights on the Chicago Bulls on Wednesday, trying to get that lick back after taking an embarrassing loss at home to the Bulls. They see them again this week, so hopefully that post-game show is talking about another Bucks victory. So we'll wrap up the show here. We'll be back with more Locked On Bucks throughout the week, so make sure that y'all keep it locked in. Also, check out the Locked On Bucks daily newsletter at lockedondaily.com. Make sure y'all subscribe to that as well, and we'll holler at y'all later.